Admiral Lee Dae-yun stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars through the main screen. He had been fighting wars for 30 years, but space still amazed him. The darkness was so complete and the stars so bright. It made him feel small and large at the same time. "Admiral, we have a message coming in," said his communication officer, Lieutenant Park So-young. Her voice was tight with worry. "It's from the new Bizon colony ship?" Lee turned toward her. The new Bizon was carrying 15,000 people to start a new life on Kepler 442b. They had left Earth 6 months ago, full of hope and dreams. The ship was huge but slow, built for carrying families and supplies, not for fighting. "Put it through," Lee said. The screen flickered, and Captain Hung Min-soo appeared. His face was covered in sweat, and his uniform was torn. Behind him, Lee could see smoke and flashing red lights. "Admiral, we're under attack!" Hung shouted. Unknown ships came out of nowhere. They didn't even try to talk to us. They just started shooting. The image shook as something hit the new Bizon. Lee heard screams in the background. "How many ships?" Lee asked, already moving toward his command chair. "At least 20. "They're huge, Admiral. Much bigger than anything we have. And, they look like giant insects." Lee's blood went cold. Earth had been exploring space for 50 years, but they had never found intelligent life. Now it seemed that intelligent life had found them first. "We're coming, Captain. Hold on as long as you can." "Admiral, I don't think we can." The screen went black. Lee stared at the empty screen for a long moment. 15,000 people, men, women, children. "All gone in minutes. Lieutenant Park, send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have first contact with hostile aliens. Then contact all ships in this sector. We're going to Kepler system at maximum speed?" "Yes, sir," Park said, but her voice was shaking. Lee knew what she was thinking. His fleet had only 12 ships. If the aliens had 20 ships big enough to destroy the new Bizon so quickly, what chance did they have? But Lee had not become an admiral by running away from fights he might lose. 3 days later, they reached Kepler system. What they found there made Lee's heart break. The new Bizon was nothing but twisted metal floating in space. There were no survivors, but the alien ships were still there, waiting. Lee counted them through his telescope. 23 ships, each one twice the size of his biggest battleship. They looked like they were made from black metal and sharp angles. They reminded him of the giant beetles he used to catch as a child, but these beetles had weapons. "They're sending us a message, Admiral," Lieutenant Park said. "Let's hear it." A new face appeared on the screen. It was not human. The creature had 6 eyes, each one black and empty. Its mouth was full of sharp teeth, and its skin looked like it was made from metal plates. When it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "I am High Commander Vexthaner of the Vorthic Empire. You humans are now part of our empire. You will give us tribute and obey our commands. If you refuse, we will destroy your home planet. Just like we destroyed your colony ship?" Lee looked at the creature for a long moment. Then he stood up. "I am Admiral Lee Dae-yun of the Earth Defense Force. You killed 15,000 innocent people without warning. You attacked civilians who had no weapons. You are not welcome in our space." Vexthaner made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your space? You have 12 small ships. We have conquered 300 star systems. We have destroyed entire species that were stronger than you. What makes you think you can fight us?" Lee smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "You're about to find out." The alien commander's 6 eyes focused on Lee. "You are either very brave or very stupid. I think you are stupid. I will give you one last chance. Surrender now, and we will let some of your people live as our slaves?" "No," Lee said simply. Vexthaner's face twisted with anger. "Then you will all die. Attack." The alien ships began to move toward Lee's fleet. They were big and powerful, but they moved slowly. Lee had been watching them for 3 days, and he had learned something important. The aliens were used to fighting enemies who were afraid of them. They attacked in straight lines, depending on their size and numbers to win, but Lee's ships were different. They were smaller and faster. They had been built to fight pirates and rebels who used hit-and-run tactics. Every human ship captain knew how to think quickly and change plans in the middle of a battle. All ships, this is Admiral Lee, remember your training? Stay fast, stay smart, and make every shot count. These aliens think we're weak because we're small. Let's show them how wrong they are. The battle began. The alien ships fired first. Their weapons were powerful, sending beams of red energy across space. But Lee's ships were already moving. Dancing between the energy beams like leaves in the wind, Captain Park Ji-woo, commanding the battleship Sejong the Great, was the first to return fire. His quantum torpedoes hit one of the alien ships right in the center. The aliens had shields, but the torpedoes went right through them as if they were not there. The alien ship exploded in a ball of fire. Vex Thanner's voice came over the radio, sounding confused and angry. How did they do that? Our shields should stop everything. But Lee's ships kept moving, kept firing. The aliens were bigger and stronger, but they were also slower and less clever. They kept trying to hit the human ships with direct fire, but the humans would not stay still long enough to be hit. One by one, the alien ships began to fall. After 6 hours of fighting, Vex Thanner had lost 15 of his 23 ships. His remaining ships were damaged and his crew was scared. Retreat, he ordered. All ships, retreat. The surviving alien ships jumped away into hyperspace. Leaving Lee and his fleet alone with the wreckage, Lee looked around at his ships. He had lost 3 vessels and many good people, but they had won. They had beaten an enemy that was supposed to be unbeatable, but Lee knew this was just the beginning. The aliens would be back with more ships. Earth needed to be ready. High Commander Vex Thanner stood in the war room of the Vorthic Empire's main battle station. His 6 eyes stared at the holographic display showing the battle at Kepler system. He had watched the recording 50 times, but he still could not believe what he was seeing. Play it again, he ordered. The recording started over. 23 Vorthic ships against 12 human vessels. It should have been easy. The humans were a new species, primitive and weak. But in the recording, Vex Thanner watched his fleet get torn apart by enemies who moved like ghosts and hit like thunder. Supreme Commander Thekvar entered the room. He was older than Vex Thanner, with scars covering his metal-plated skin. He had conquered 20 star systems for the Empire. The High Council wants to see you, Thekvar said. His voice was cold. Vex Thanner knew he was in trouble. The Vorthek Empire did not forgive failure. In the council chamber, 12 of the Empire's most powerful leaders sat in tall chairs that looked like thrones. Their eyes glowed in the darkness as they stared down at Vex Thanner. You lost 15 ships to a species we had never heard of before, said High Chancellor Morgeth. Explain this failure. Vex Thanner's claws clicked against the floor. The humans have better technology than we expected. Their weapons can go through our shields. Their ships are faster than ours. Are you saying that these primitives are superior to the mighty Vorthic Empire? Another council member asked. No, Honored One. I'm saying we need a bigger fleet. Give me 200 ships and I will crush them. The council members looked at each other. Finally, High Chancellor Morgeth nodded. You will have your fleet. But if you fail again, you will be executed. Do you understand? I understand, Honored One. 3 weeks later, Vex Thanner led 200 Vorthic ships toward Earth's solar system. He was confident now. The humans had 12 ships. He had 200. Even with their better technology, they could not win against such numbers, but when his fleet arrived at Earth, Vex Thanner got his second surprise. 50. Human ships waited for them in perfect formation near Mars. They were arranged in a complex pattern that Vex Thanner had never seen before. Only 50 ships, said his second-in-command, Captain Zulkar. We still outnumber them 4-1? But Vex Thanner was not so sure anymore. Where had the humans gotten 38 more ships so quickly? Admiral Lee Dae-yun stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the battleship Gwanggaeto the Great. Around him, his officers worked quietly and efficiently. They all knew what was at stake. If they lost this battle, Earth would be destroyed. Oh, Ships report ready, Admiral, said Commander Kim Minji, his new tactical officer. Lee nodded. He had spent 3 weeks preparing for this moment. Earth's shipyards had been working day and night to finish the ships that were almost complete. Every retired pilot had been called back to service. Every weapon had been checked and double-checked, but Lee had also been planning something else, something the aliens would not expect. Dr. Nam Tae-hoon, Earth's best military strategist, had studied the recordings from the first battle. He had found weaknesses in how the aliens fought. They liked to attack in straight lines. They did not change their plans quickly. They depended on fear to make their enemies make mistakes. The Vorthik ships are moving into attack formation, Kim Minji reported. Lee watched the alien fleet on his main screen. They were arranging themselves into a giant wedge shape, just like Dr. Nam had predicted. Send the signal, Lee ordered. Suddenly, space around the Vorthak fleet filled with light. 30 more human ships appeared from behind asteroids and space stations where they had been hiding. The aliens were not facing 50 ships. They were facing 80, but that was not the biggest surprise. The human ships did not attack the way the aliens expected. Instead of meeting the Vorthak wedge head-on, they split into small groups and attacked from all sides at once. Captain Park Ji-woo, now commanding the destroyer Turtle ship, led his squadron in a high-speed attack on the alien fleet's left side. His quantum torpedoes struck 3 enemy ships before they could turn to face him. At the same time, Captain Choi Hyun-woo attacked from below with his squadron of fast attack boats. The aliens tried to shoot at him, but his ships were too small and quick. Colonel Kang Ji-yong, the engineer who had designed the quantum torpedoes, watched from Earth as her weapons tore through alien shields like they were made of paper. The aliens still did not understand how the torpedoes worked. They existed in 2 dimensions at the same time, which meant normal shields could not stop them. "Sir, we're losing ships too fast," Captain Zulkar shouted to Vexthaner. "Our formation is breaking apart." Vexthaner could see that his second-in-command was right. The human attack was like being hit by a swarm of angry insects. Everywhere he looked, small groups of human ships were striking at his fleet and then disappearing before his weapons could target them. "All ships, break formation, attack the nearest human vessel," Vexthaner ordered, but this made things worse. Now his ships were scattered and confused. The humans had been working together as one unit. The Vorthak ships were just individual fighters trying to survive. Admiral Lee watched the battle from his command chair. Everything was going according to Dr. Nam's plan. The aliens were brave and their ships were powerful, but they did not know how to fight an enemy that refused to follow the normal rules of space combat. "Sir, the enemy fleet is breaking apart," Commander Kim reported. "Good. Signal all ships. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was the most dangerous part of the plan. 20 human ships, led by Lee himself, charged straight at the center of the confused alien fleet. The aliens thought the humans were finally fighting the way they expected. They were wrong again. As soon as the alien ships turned to face Lee's charge, the other 60 human ships attacked from behind. Caught between 2 forces, the Vorthik fleet began to collapse. Captain Oh Seung-min, commanding a new type of stealth ship, appeared right next to the alien flagship. His ship had been invisible until that moment. Before the aliens could react, he fired every weapon he had into their command center. Vexthaner felt his ship shake as explosions rocked the bridge. Half of his officers were dead. His communications were failing. Around him, the great Vorthik fleet was being destroyed by an enemy that was supposed to be weak and primitive. "Sir, we've lost 60% of our ships," Zulkar reported. His voice was filled with fear. "We need to retreat." For the first time in his life, Vexthaner felt what his victims had felt. He felt helpless. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace." The surviving Vorthak ships disappeared into hyperspace, leaving behind the wreckage of more than half their fleet. Admiral Lee looked at the battlefield. They had won again, but the victory felt hollow. Too many good people had died on both sides. "Send a message to Earth Command," Lee told Kim Minji. "Tell them the solar system is secure. then start rescue operations for any survivors. But Lee knew this was still not the end. He had embarrassed the Vorthik Empire twice. They would not give up easily. He was right. In the Vorthik Council chamber, High Chancellor Morgeth was screaming at his advisors. How is this possible? How can one small planet defeat our greatest fleets? Perhaps, said an old council member, we have made a mistake. Perhaps these humans are not as weak as we thought. But Morgeth did not want to hear about mistakes. He wanted revenge. Gather every ship we have, he ordered. I don't care if it takes 1,000 vessels. These humans will pay for their defiance. 3 months had passed since the battle at Earth. Admiral Lee Dae-yun now commanded the largest human fleet in history. 150 ships filled the space around Earth's moon, but Lee was not planning to defend anymore. It was time to take the fight to the enemy. Dr. Shin Yunbi finished her report on the alien prisoners they had captured. She was Earth's first expert on alien psychology, and what she had learned was very important. The Vorthik Empire controls over 300 star systems, she told the War Council. But they rule through fear, not loyalty. Most of their subjects are slaves from species they conquered. If we can show these slaves that the Vorthik can be beaten, many of them will rebel. President Yoon Soha nodded from her seat at the table. What about their military strength? They have maybe 2,000 ships total, but they're scattered across their empire. They can't bring them all to one place without leaving their territory undefended. Lee studied the star maps on the table. Then we don't give them time to gather their forces. We hit them fast and hard in multiple places at once. This was the plan they called Operation Wildfire. Human fleets would attack Vorthik supply lines and border colonies while spreading the word that the mighty empire could be defeated. Commander Oh So-min led the first strike. His stealth ships appeared at the Vorthak supply depot at Rigel 7 without warning. The alien guards never saw them coming. Multiple supply ships destroyed, Oh reported over the radio. The aliens are completely confused. They don't know where we are or how many ships we have. At the same time, Captain Park Ji-woo attacked a Vorthik patrol fleet near the Vega system. His ships appeared, destroyed 3 alien vessels, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive, but the most important attack happened at Proxima Centauri, where the Vorthak had enslaved a species called the Corallians. These aliens looked like tall, thin humans with blue skin and 4 arms. They had been fighting a losing war against the Vorthak for 10 years. Captain Lee Shuho led the attack on the Corallian prison world. His new mech suits were perfect for this kind of mission. Each suit was 12 feet tall and armed with the latest human weapons. The Vorthak prison guards were not expecting an attack. They had grown lazy after years of easy victories. Bay and his soldiers cut through their defenses like a hot knife through butter. This is Captain Bay to all Corallian prisoners, he broadcast over the prison's communication system. Earth forces are here to free you. The Vorthik Empire is not invincible. Fight back, and we will help you win your freedom. The response was immediate. Corallian prisoners rose up all over the planet. They had been waiting for this chance for years. Corallian leader Veltar met with Bay after the battle. His blue skin was covered with scars from years of torture, but his eyes burned with hope. Your species risks everything to help people you have never met, Veltar said. Why? Bay removed his helmet and looked at the alien. Because slavery is wrong no matter who is being enslaved. And because we could use your help to stop the Vorthak from doing this to anyone else. Within weeks, 6 more star systems had joined the rebellion against the Vorthik Empire. The aliens had thought their empire was unbreakable, but it was starting to crack. High Chancellor Morgeth was furious. Every day brought news of more defeats, more rebellions, more lost territory. How can 12 human ships appear in 6 different systems at the same time? He demanded. His intelligence chief, Korthel, had bad news. They have more ships than we thought. Our spies report at least 30 major shipyards in human space, all building warships. Impossible. They are just one small planet. Not anymore. High Chancellor, they have colonies in 20 star systems now. and they're building ships faster than we can destroy them. Morgith's claws scraped against his throne. Then we will use the planet killers. We will destroy their colonies one by one until they surrender. Vexthaner, now commanding the defense of the Vorthak home system, was not sure this was a good idea. High Chancellor, using planet killers against civilian targets will turn every species in the galaxy against us? I don't care. These humans must be stopped. The target they chose was New Sol, humanity's largest colony. 2 million people lived there, and it was the center of human trade and culture outside of Earth. 500 Vorthak ships surrounded the planet. Their commander sent a message to Earth. This is Fleet Admiral Caxmore of the Vorthak Empire. You have 1 day to surrender unconditionally. If you refuse, we will destroy New Sol and every human on it. Then we will destroy another colony and another until you submit. The message reached Earth just as Admiral Lee was preparing for his own attack on the Vorthak home system. He had to choose, save New Sol or continue with the plan to end the war. Lee made his choice quickly. All ships, new target. We're going to New Sol, but Lee was not going alone. The rebellion against the Vorthak had grown beyond his wildest dreams. 50 species had joined the fight for freedom. When the call went out to save New Sol, ships came from across the galaxy, Corallian cruisers with their blue hulls and elegant designs, Mentari fighters that looked like flying crystals, Drogan heavy battleships built like floating fortresses, and dozens of other species that had suffered under Vorthak rule. The combined fleet that jumped into the New Sol system was the largest in galactic history. 200 ships from dozens of different worlds, all united by one idea: freedom, fleet. Admiral Caxmore stared at his screens in disbelief. Where did they all come from? Sir, we're detecting ships from at least 30 different species, his tactical officer reported. Many of them are supposed to be extinct. They're not extinct, came a voice over the radio. It was Admiral Lee. They were just waiting for someone to show them that tyrants can be beaten. The Battle of New Sol lasted 18 hours. It was the largest space battle in recorded history. Weapons fire lit up the space around the planet like a deadly fireworks display. The Vorthak ships were powerful, but they were outnumbered and fighting an enemy that knew all their tactics. Human captains shared their knowledge with alien allies. Over secure radio channels, Corallian engineers worked with human technicians to modify weapons in the middle of battle. Drogan pilots learned human attack patterns and improved them. Captain Ru Minhee, commanding the new battleship King Sejong, led a combined force of human and alien ships against the Vorthak center. Her quantum torpedoes, now improved with Corallian guidance systems, struck with deadly precision. Commander Lim Sung-young, Earth's new ambassador to the Alien Alliance, watched the battle from the bridge of a Mentari command ship. She saw something that made her smile: dozens of different species working together as one. This is how the galaxy should be, she said to her Mentari hosts. Not one empire ruling over everyone else, but all species working together as equals. When the battle ended, 400 Vorthak ships had been destroyed. The Alliance had lost only 30 vessels. Fleet Admiral Caxmore, his ship damaged and his fleet in ruins, sent his surrender. We yield, he said. The planet is yours. But Admiral Lee's response surprised everyone, including his own officers. We don't want your surrender, Lee said. We want you to go home and tell your leaders that the age of the Vorthak Empire is over. Tell them that 50 species have united against tyranny. Tell them that if they want peace, they must free every slave and stop every invasion. If they refuse, we will come to their home worlds and free their slaves ourselves. As the surviving Vorthak ships limped away from New Sol, Caxmore knew that everything had changed. The humans had not just won a battle. They had created something new, a galaxy where the oppressed could fight back and win. In the Vorthak capital, High Chancellor Morgith received Caxmore's report with growing horror. Half the Empire was in rebellion. Their greatest fleet had been destroyed, and the humans were coming. How many ships do we have left to defend the home system? He asked. 800, High Chancellor. But many of our slave species are refusing to fight. Some are joining the rebels. Morgith looked around the council chamber. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Vorthak Empire was truly afraid. "Prepare for siege," he ordered. "If these humans want our homeworld, they will have to pay for it with blood." The Vorthak home system was the most heavily defended place in the galaxy. For 600 years, no enemy had ever reached the heart of their empire. Ancient weapon platforms floated in space like sleeping giants, waiting to destroy any invader. The Vorthak homeworld itself was surrounded by energy shields that could stop entire fleets. High Chancellor Morgith stood in the war room deep beneath the planet's surface. Around him, the greatest military minds of the Empire planned their final defense. 800 ships, reported Supreme Commander Thekvar, plus the orbital defense platforms and the planetary shields. They will never break through. Vex Thanner, now in charge of all Vorthak forces, was not so confident. He had fought the humans twice and lost both times. "You don't understand what we're facing? These humans don't fight like normal species. They think of things we would never consider. They are still just flesh and blood," Morgith said. "Our ancestors built these defenses to last forever. No force in the galaxy can break them." But even as he spoke, long-range sensors detected the approaching enemy fleet. What they saw made even the bravest Vorthak warriors afraid. 400 ships filled space at the edge of their system. But these were not just human vessels. The fleet included warships from dozens of species that the Vorthak had thought were conquered or destroyed. Admiral Leah Dayan stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the massive defenses ahead of them. The Vorthak homeworld was protected by technology that was older than human civilization. Breaking through would not be easy. "Sir, we're receiving messages from Earth," reported Commander Kim Minji. "President Yoon wants to know if you need more." "Ships," Lee shook his head. "We have enough ships. The question is whether we have enough time." The plan was complex. The Alliance fleet would lay siege to the Vorthak system, slowly destroying the outer defenses while cutting off all supply lines. It would take months, but eventually the defenders would run out of food, fuel, and ammunition. But Lee knew that time was not on their side. Back on Earth and the other human colonies, people were getting tired of the war. Some politicians were talking about making peace with the Vorthak Empire. If the siege took too long, support for the war might collapse. General Hajinsu, commanding the Alliance ground forces, had a different problem. Even if they broke through the space defenses, they would still have to land on a planet with billions of hostile aliens. "My soldiers are ready to fight," he told Lee over the communication link. "But taking a whole planet will cost us millions of lives," Lee understood. This war had started when the Vorthak killed 15,000 innocent people on the New Bizan. Now they were talking about killing millions more to end it. Something was wrong with that math. Dr. Nam Tae-hoon had been studying the Vorthak defenses for weeks. The old strategist had found something interesting in the ancient records. The orbital platforms were built 600 years ago, he explained to the War Council. They're powered by fusion reactors that need to be refueled every 50 years. Captain Park Ji-woo, now commanding a squadron of heavy cruisers, saw where Nam was going with this. "When were they last refueled?" "According to our intelligence, 48 years ago." Lee smiled for the first time in weeks. "So they're running on empty. Not empty, but close. If we can make them use their weapons continuously for several days, their power systems will start to fail." This led to a new plan. Instead of trying to break through the defenses all at once, the Alliance fleet would attack in waves, forcing the platforms to fire constantly. It would be dangerous, many ships would be lost, but it might work. The siege began at dawn on a Tuesday. Captain Oh Seung-min led the first attack with his stealth squadrons. His ships appeared right next to the outer defense platforms and fired every weapon they had before disappearing again. The platforms responded with massive energy beams that lit up space like artificial suns. But Oh's ships were already gone, and the platforms had wasted precious power firing at empty space. An hour later, Captain Rumin-hee led her battleships in a direct assault on the middle ring of defenses. Her ships took heavy damage, but they forced the platforms to fire again and again. All day long, Alliance ships attacked the Vorthak defenses. They came in small groups, struck quickly, and retreated before the enemy could destroy them. Each attack was small, but together they forced the defensive platforms to use enormous amounts of energy. By the third day, the platforms were starting to slow down. Their energy beams were not as bright, and they took longer to recharge between shots. Vexthaner watched the battle from his command ship and finally understood what the humans were doing. "They're not trying to break through," he told his officers. "They're trying to wear us down. They know our defenses are old and can't fight forever." Supreme Commander Thekvar was furious. "Then we should send our fleet out to attack them." "With what fuel?" Vexthaner asked. "The Alliance has cut off all our supply lines. We have enough energy for maybe 2 weeks of fighting." On the fourth day, the first defense platform went dark. Its fusion reactor had finally run out of fuel. Within hours, Alliance ships swarmed over it like ants, capturing it intact. Engineer Kang Jiang studied the captured platform with fascination. The technology was ancient but still impressive. More importantly, she now understood how all the other platforms worked. "I can build a virus," she told Admiral Lee over the radio. "Something that will make their computer systems think the reactors are overheating. They'll shut down automatically to prevent explosions. How long do you need?" "Give me 6 hours." Meanwhile, the siege continued. More platforms went dark as their fuel ran out. The Vorthak fleet was trapped inside their own defenses, unable to attack without leaving their homeworld unprotected. High Chancellor Morgoth was beginning to panic. In just 1 week, the Alliance had destroyed or captured 20% of his orbital defenses. At this rate, they would break through within a month. "We have to use the planet-killer weapons," he told the Council. "Destroy their fleet before they can reach our world." "But High Chancellor," protested one council member, "if we use planet killers in our own system, the radiation will poison our homeworld for centuries. Better a poisoned world than no world at all." But before Morgoth could give the order, Kang Jiang's virus struck. One by one, defense platforms across the system began shutting down as their computers detected false reactor overheating warnings. Within 3 hours, half the Vorthak defenses were offline. "Now," Admiral Lee ordered. "All ships, full attack." The Alliance fleet charged into the heart of the Vorthak system like a spear thrust. The remaining platforms fired desperately, but there were too few of them to stop 400 attacking ships. Captain Bei Jiho, leading the assault troops, prepared his mech suits for the final battle. His soldiers were a mix of humans and aliens, old volunteers who had suffered under Vorthak rule. "Remember," he told them over the radio, "we're not here to destroy their world. We're here to free it." The planetary shields were the last defense. These energy barriers had protected the Vorthak homeworld for centuries. But they had one weakness that their builders had never considered. They were designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, not ships that could phase between dimensions. Captain Park Jawo's squadron of quantum drive ships passed right through the shields as if they were not there. Once inside, they began destroying the shield generators from within. The shields flickered and died. Vexthaner watched from his command bunker as Alliance landing craft began descending toward the planet's surface. After 6 months of war, the humans and their allies had finally reached the heart of the Vorthak Empire. "Sir," his communications officer said, "we're receiving a message from the human fleet." Lee's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. "This is Admiral Lee Daeyeon to all Vorthak forces. Your defenses are broken and your fleet is surrounded. But we're not here to destroy you. We're here to offer you the same choice you offered us 6 months ago: surrender and live, or fight and die." Vexthaner looked around the bunker at his fellow officers. They were the greatest warriors of the mightiest empire in the galaxy, but they were also beaten. "What terms do you offer?" Vexthaner asked. "Complete surrender? Your leaders will be put on trial for their crimes. Your military will be disbanded, your slaves will be freed, but your people will live, and those who had no part in your crimes will be forgiven." High Chancellor Morgoth pushed Vexthaner aside and screamed at the screen. Never, the Vorthek Empire will never surrender to inferior species. We will fight to the last warrior. But when Morgoth looked around the bunker, he found himself alone. One by one, his officers had laid down their weapons. Vexthaner spoke for all of them. We surrender. 1 year after the fall of the Vorthek Empire, the Great Trial began. In the ruins of the alien capital, representatives from 50 different species gathered to decide the fate of the former rulers of the galaxy. Judge Kim Wan-shik, chosen to lead the tribunal, looked out at the courtroom. It was the largest building on the planet, but it was still crowded. Beings from across the galaxy had come to see justice done. In the defendants section sat the former leaders of the Vorthek Empire. High Chancellor Morgoth refused to look at anyone. His 6 eyes stared at the floor, and his metal-plated skin had lost its shine. Beside him, former Supreme Commander Thekvar waited quietly for his fate to be decided, but it was Vexthaner who drew the most attention. The former High Commander had changed during his year in prison. He no longer looked like the proud warrior who had attacked the new Bizan colony ship. His eyes showed something that few Vorthek had ever felt: regret. Prosecutor Lehound stood to read the charges. She was young for such an important job, but she had studied every crime the Vorthek had committed over 6 centuries of conquest. The defendants are charged with genocide, slavery, and crimes against sapient beings. They destroyed entire species. They enslaved billions of innocent people. They turned the galaxy into a place of fear and suffering. The evidence took 3 weeks to present. Survivors from dozens of worlds told their stories. Former slaves described lives of endless pain. The families of the 15,000 people killed on the new Bizan wept as they remembered their loved ones, but the most powerful testimony came from an unexpected source. I call Vexthaner to the witness stand, Prosecutor Lee announced. The former High Commander walked slowly to the front of the courtroom. He had asked to testify, something that surprised everyone. Judge Kim looked at the alien warrior. You understand that anything you say can be used against you? I understand, Your Honor, but there are things that must be said. Vexthaner turned to face the crowded courtroom. His voice was quiet but clear. I destroyed the new Bizan because I thought it would be easy. I saw a ship full of families and thought they were weak. I saw humans trying to build peaceful colonies and thought they were afraid of war. He paused, his claws clicking against the witness stand. I was wrong about everything. When I attacked that colony ship, I didn't just kill 15,000 people. I woke up something that had been sleeping. I turned the most dangerous species in the galaxy from builders into warriors. Someone in the crowd shouted, "You're just trying to save your own life." Vexthaner looked toward the voice. No, I know I will die for my crimes, and I deserve to die. But before I go, young species need to understand what I learned too late. He turned back to Judge Kim. The humans could have destroyed our homeworld. They had the weapons to kill every Vorthek in the galaxy, but they chose not to. They chose to capture us alive and give us this trial. They chose mercy when they could have chosen revenge. The courtroom was completely silent now. That is why they won, Vexthaner continued. Not because their ships were faster or their weapons were stronger. They won because they were better than us. They turned our victims into their allies. They made enemies into friends. They created hope where we had created only fear. Prosecutor Lee asked her final question. Do you have any regret for your actions? Every day I regret attacking that colony ship. Not because it led to our defeat, but because those 15,000 people did not deserve to die. They were explorers, dreamers, families looking for a new home. The galaxy is darker without them. The trial lasted 6 months. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. High Chancellor Morgoth and Supreme Commander Thekvar were sentenced to life in prison. Dozens of other Vorthek leaders received similar punishments, but Vexthaner's sentence was different. Because he had testified honestly about his crimes, he was sentenced to life in service. He would spend the rest of his days working to rebuild the worlds he had helped destroy. More importantly, the trial created something new, the Galactic Accords. For the first time in history, all the species of the galaxy agreed to follow the same basic laws. No more slavery. No more conquest. No more genocide. Dr. Kim Minji, now Secretary General of the new Galactic Federation, signed the accords on behalf of humanity. But she made sure that Earth was not the leader of the new government. The Federation would be ruled by all species working together. We didn't fight this war to become the new Vorthek Empire, she explained to the Federation Council. We fought to make sure that no species would ever rule over all the others again. The work of rebuilding began immediately. Admiral Lee, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, led the effort to help former slave worlds create their own governments. It was harder than fighting the war had been on Coralia. The blue-skinned aliens struggled to remember how to govern themselves after generations of slavery. Captain Park Ji-woo, now serving as a Federation advisor, worked with Corallian leader Veltar to establish their first democratic elections on Drogon. The crystal beings had to learn to trust other species again after centuries of betrayal. Commander. Oh, Sunmin helped them rebuild their space fleet. But this time it would be used for exploration, not war. The hardest job belonged to Dr. Chun Yuan, a therapist who worked with the traumatized survivors of Vorthek rule. She traveled from world to world, helping people learn to live without fear. Healing takes time, she told a group of former slaves. The scars left by tyranny don't disappear overnight, but they can fade and you can learn to be free. 5 years. After the trial, President Yoon Soha gave a speech to mark the anniversary of first contact. She spoke to a crowd that included beings from across the galaxy. 5 years ago, we received a message from space. It was not the message we had hoped for. Instead of friendship, we found cruelty. Instead of peace, we found war. She paused, looking out at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. But from that dark beginning, something beautiful has grown. We have learned that the galaxy is full of people who want the same things we want: freedom, safety, and hope for their children. We have learned that differences in appearance don't matter when hearts beat with the same dreams. In a Federation prison on a distant world, Vex Thanner watched the speech on a small screen. He was old now, his metal skin scarred from years of hard work. But his job was almost done. He taught classes to young cadets from dozens of species, sharing the hard lessons he had learned. His final lesson was always the same: never mistake kindness for weakness. The people who choose peace while having the power to make war are the most dangerous of all. They are dangerous because they fight only when they must, and when they fight to win. A young human cadet raised her hand. Sir, do you think the galaxy will ever see another war like the one you started? Vex Thanner looked out the window at the ships in orbit. Human vessels flew alongside Corallian cruisers and Drogon fighters. Former enemies had become partners. I hope not, he said quietly. I hope the young people of all species will be wiser than I was. I hope they will choose to build rather than destroy, to unite rather than divide. He turned back to his students. But if another tyrant does rise, if another empire tries to enslave the free peoples of the galaxy, then I hope the humans are still there to stop them. Because in all my years of conquest, in all my studies of war and peace, I learned one important truth: the galaxy is safer when Earth is watching. As the old Vorthek warrior returned to his lesson, ships from a dozen worlds passed overhead. They carried traders and teachers, explorers and artists. They were building the kind of galaxy that the people on the New Bizan had dreamed of when they set out for their new home. It had taken a war to create peace. But peace had finally come. Admiral Lee, now an old man himself, stood on the observation deck of the newest Federation starship. His granddaughter, Captain Lee Soyoung, commanded the vessel. Grandpa, do you ever regret starting the war? She asked. Lee thought for a long moment. I regret that it was necessary. I regret every life that was lost. But I don't regret defending our people and our freedom, he pointed out at the stars. Your generation will explore worlds we never imagined. You'll meet species we never knew existed. And you'll do it in peace because people were willing to fight when fighting was the only choice. The ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying its mixed crew toward the unknown. Behind them, the light of Earth's sun grew dim among the stars, but its message of hope and freedom traveled with them wherever they went. In the vast darkness of space, that light would never fade.